Hello, Scorpio. Welcome to your Gemini season horoscope. I'm recording for you in Taurus season. It's Tuesday, April 23rd. It is the day of the Scorpio full moon. The moon has recently entered into Scorpio, and yours is the first of the horoscopes that I'll record today. So I just wanted to start with some gratitude for you. Thanks for being you. Thanks for being a representative and an emissary of Scorpionic intelligence, the intelligences that move through Scorpio as an energetic quality that all life gets to participate with, but especially through the bodies that have big Scorpio energy, is really, really necessary. It's really potent. It's really powerful, as I know you know. Your stuff is the substance of transformational alchemy. And the relationship between Gemini and Scorpio is kind of an odd one. I'll be talking about that when we get into your horoscope, and I'm going to share the solar chart so that you can reference that visually. But Gemini really holds a potent place for you. It holds the 8th house, which in some schools of thought is not the same, but associated with the 8th sign, which is Scorpio. So it feels fortuitous and like a good omen to begin with you today. So welcome to Gemini season. I'm going to share my screen so that we can look at your chart together. All right, Scorpio, Gemini season. As I just mentioned, Gemini holds the solar 8th house for Scorpio. The 8th house is a place in the sky that is right before the sun sets. And it is a counter to the 2nd house, and the 2nd and 8th axis sometimes is called the gate of Hades or the gate to the underworld. And the 8th house is the gate in, whereas the 2nd house is the gate out. But somewhat similar to your sign polarity axis, your opposite sign is Taurus. And in the body, Scorpio and Taurus respectively rule the gates in and out of the body. Taurus rules the mouth, and Scorpio rules the asshole and the genitals. So, gates of both reproduction, regeneration, and also elimination, this bodily correspondence. I think it really says a thing about what Scorpio energy is a symbol for. And culturally, at least in the culture that I come from, which, has been largely shaped by notions of sanitization that are firmly steeped in white supremacy and a kind of like religious, I would say, like a religious idea of sin, right? Which is to degrade the body and the earth and the natural processes of the body, including pooping and childbirth and menstruation, including fucking, right? It's like these ways of being that our bodies need, to survive, literally to survive, but also the axis points in our body to regeneration, and poop is fertilizer. It's important stuff for the soil. Like my friend Michelle Gabrieloff Parrish said in a presentation the other day on Indigenous land tending practices, she was talking about how there's a necessary remembering of the notion that one person's yuck is another person's yum. You might not want someone to come and poop on you, but the earth, if it's well-tended poop, right, it does a thing. And when we deny and suppress and kind of push away these natural instincts and impulses and the vital processes of our bodies, including the processes of pleasure, including the processes of death and suffering, those processes don't go away. They don't lessen. They just get closeted, right? And so something happens in the suppression of them that really breeds toxicity in the body, that breeds shame, that doesn't allow for continuity with creation, and therefore a kind of self-empowered sovereignty and feeling of the body as sacred, and everything that the body is connected to also as sacred. So even though you're Scorpio identified, if you're listening to this or watching this video or reading the text, you are living at a time, and maybe, maybe you're accessing this so far in the future that you're not living this time anymore, and I pray for that. But probably chances are you are living in a time that has imposed these notions on your body too. And you are living at a time where these notions have been imposed on the earth and therefore on all bodies, and everybody is suffering for it. And so first and foremost, we're coming into Gemini season from Taurus season, and Taurus season is the season I'm in right now. It's the season actually that has just begun. So I'm going to speak what feels resonant for me in my interpretation with the chart, but Taurus season is a time of great disruption on Earth and a real call of vital remembrance for us to live in continuity with creation. And that means getting intimate with the yuck. It means being able to pause and slow down and be with and feel the feelings and integrate them and metabolize them and go through the processes of integration and metabolism, which sometimes might mean mourning or raging or feeling totally devastated and depressed. It might need us to feel really confused and lost in order to put down what we're so, frenetically moving towards or something in survival grind culture. And for you, as we move into Gemini season, we are moving into a time that deeply, deeply resonates with these needs in your Scorpionic, Scorpio identified body. And so this is a chart for, Scorpio rising. It's a solar chart though. And so Scorpio sun, this is totally for you. This is for your essence. This is for anybody's Scorpio placements. Okay. So astrology is symbolic. It's creative. Take what works, leave the rest. I think that this is a time that is asking you to do the thing that Scorpio often does for others, but to do it for yourself. And so what does Scorpio often do for others? Holds up a mirror of potent, powerful reflection. And in that mirror, we're not looking at the surface impression. We are actually seeing, right? Or seeking to see, right? And the penetration of Scorpio's gaze, the intensity of their gaze, this is something that I invite you to turn to your inner landscape. And as you turn your gaze inwards, to notice how much you are oftentimes not stopping to pause and be with in ways that truly allow for your regeneration because you live in grind culture, right? Because you too have been taught to hustle. And because you also probably have been influenced by notions of relationship that are quite sanitized, right? That kind of like have these, I don't know, like ideals of harmony or peace that are really nice, but like don't get to the depth, right? Like don't necessarily always deal with the stuff. And so as a Scorpio person, I'm just going to put this out there that I think that you do a lot of labor for other people who won't look at themselves, right? Who won't take the time to pause, to tune in, to really feel what's present, to penetrate and investigate into the underworld and the underlayers. And in this season, I want to invite you to really do that and be that with yourself. And as you do that and be that with yourself, you will naturally do that and be that with others. I want to invite you in your relationships to actually just commit to being a disruptive person. You can have stability, it's not like you always have to be disruptive, but Scorpios aren't here to always keep the peace. And that doesn't mean that you don't want peace. Always struggling to keep the peace can sometimes mean that we're constantly in a state of tension and battle because we're so afraid of, addressing the violence that's already here. So if you're a scorpionic person who is here to sometimes say the thing that necessitates the pause, right? That it's like, whoa, you just said that, or to point out the thing that maybe somebody else doesn't want to look at, or to dwell in the pain points that are also points of beauty or points of pleasure, but maybe others don't always want to dwell there because they're scared of it. I want to invite you to really just take up your fucking space. Like you are bringing potent medicine into this world and we need you. At the same time, I want to say that your labor, like that work that you're doing, is it's super necessary for the environment, for others, but it's not for them, right? Like it also has to be for you. And when you turn your gaze to you and like get into how are you actually feeling right now, right? Like that's a question that probably most of us could benefit from really taking time to meditate with these days. How are we actually feeling? And not from a mental conceptual place, but from an embodied space. So if you're feeling stressed out and overwhelmed by something, where is that in your body? Where does the stress live? What does the overwhelm do to your breath? What does it do to your eating habits? How does it drive you? Does it affect your sleep? Does it live in your joints? Does it create inflammation in the body? How are you actually feeling? That's a simple question that is meant actually to complexify a situation. And I think that this is a moment for you to give yourself the time and the space to be with your situation. I don't know what your situation is. I'm sure that it's complex and multifaceted and has a lot of moving pieces and moving parts. I think a lot of you are quite busy and you probably don't feel that you have the time to slow down. Or maybe some of you don't feel that way. But like Bayo Kamalafe says, and many others have said, the times are urgent, so let us slow down. If we actually are seeking transformation, and I think you're seeking transformation, we can't continue on the hamster wheel of productivity and constantly driving ourselves to get all the things that we need to get done in order to survive. There needs to be pockets of time and space where we actually retreat and go inwards and get deeper, right? And open up and be with. And this feels like a season that is asking you for that. Now, there are also a lot of reasons, like I just mentioned, that it might feel hard to do that. And especially as we get into this season, the first couple of days, we're moving towards full moon in Sagittarius. So Sagittarius is your opposite, excuse me, not your opposite sign. It's the opposite sign of Gemini. It's holding the solar second house for you. And we're going to have a Mercury retrograde later in the year in Sagittarius. And this full moon isn't necessarily near that degree point, but there's some resonances for me that are coming up with that retrograde. And I think that this is a retrograde that for you, for Scorpio identified folks, is going to really ask you to reclaim some of your important values and also your inherent worth. And it's going to be a period of time where you might be restructuring your life around your finances and your budgets and your expenditures, your resources. And I mean that definitely in a monetary sense, but I also mean that in more than monetary sense. I'm including your time, your energy, your labor, other aspects of your resource. So the full moon on the 23rd of May is a full moon that is bringing a lot of energy with it. And it's bringing a lot of ideas. And I think that you are having a lot of ideas right now. And these ideas feel abundant and that they are about abundance. There are ideas about how to resource yourself, how to get more of what you need. And in the getting of what you need, there is so much of the feeling of reciprocity here because it's also about giving what you can give. And this feels like enthusiasm, which is a big word for Sagittarius. And the word means to be with God, right? Like to be with the spirit. And I think right now you are really with the spirit of generosity. And there are lots of ideas that are coming. It's like bubbling up, pouring forward. And these ideas feel like they're about collaboration. They're about connection and exchange. And the feeling that I'm getting in my body is this kind of really exciting, exhilarating generosity. And it feels like a time for you to be giving your gifts. Now, this is the place where I want to say, slow down and pause, because we live in a culture that constantly seeks to commodify our gifts, constantly seeks to tell us that we need to package them, to market them, to make them palatable for other people, to make them understandable to other people. And then it's like they're not ours anymore, right? They're not authentic. They're not like coming from the place we are with God. They're coming from our frontal lobe where we're like trying to, I don't know, navigate and strategize, constructed reality in the present moment, which is an era of marketing, right? And so there's this danger that I feel for you, or this caution, which is not to move too fast with your new ideas, because you are looking for transformation right now. You're looking for transformation in your labor practices. You're looking for transformation in your getting and giving of resources, in your survival, in your receptivity and nourishment practices, how you access and allow in what will sustain you. And I think that some of you, probably a lot of you, and I'm like here with you, right? I think the whole world is, or a lot of the world is. It's really hard to deprogram. We've been brainwashed by this kind of like cultural paradigm of grind culture. I've been reading Rest is Resistance by Trisha Hersey. It's really in my mind right now, and I feel her language coming out of my mouth. And so I just want to give a bow in her direction. And if you haven't read that book, I highly recommend. I think that this is a time for Scorpio people, definitely for all people, but certainly for Scorpio people with everything that's going on in your fifth house these days, to really recalibrate around your energy, your output, and your reasoning for why it is that you're doing what you're doing. And so to go back to what I was saying before, I think it is very easy to feel like there's a fresh idea, to actually have a fresh idea, to feel a genuine impulse of enthusiasm, of desire and generosity, and then to fall right into the habit of consumer culture and try and make it work for here, because that's what we have to do in a lot of ways, but it's also what we're programmed to keep doing. And I think that you are a person who wants to disrupt this and you want to find a new way. And so I'm going to say, slow down. Slow down. A couple of days after the full moon on the 25th of May, we have Jupiter leaving your seventh house, leaving the opposite sign, Taurus, and moving into your eighth house, Gemini. And Jupiter will stay in Gemini until June of 2025. So Jupiter's presence in your eighth house is exciting to me. I think that, um, you know, the sign Gemini and its fellow sign Virgo are both Mercury ruled signs. The eighth house is a place that is definitely complex, but the 11th house is a place that brings a lot of gifts, and Jupiter does as well. And the feeling that I have is that this transit is wanting to give you a lot. It is wanting to give you um, resource, and resource can take a million different kinds of forms. Um, First of all, just Jupiter and Gemini, I think an abundant resource that not enough of us really appreciate or take time with is breath, right? To like take a deep breath is to be with our nervous systems. Another resource, right, is our nervous systems. They're constantly resourcing us, giving us energy, helping us coordinate and integrate our energy. And when our breath is disrupted, so are our nervous systems. And the eighth house, again, is a place of um, a need to go deep, a need to penetrate into the psyche, a need to peer and inquire within, and a need to do transformation and alchemical occult work. That means in a lot of ways, and I think this is true for all of you on some level and some of you in really explicit ways, it's like you have to pull some parts of you back from the land of the dead. You have to revitalize, right? And regenerate. That doesn't mean you're going to be immortal. It actually might mean getting a lot more comfy with your mortality, not trying to avoid your need for rest or your need for anything at all, right? Like your needs. So first and foremost, I think that this upcoming year is a time that my hope for you is that you would feel empowered to actually do less on the external so that you can more generously attend to the internal. Now, as you attend to the internal, transformation starts to happen. And I think that part of this transformation for you is building a kind of receptivity in your body mind that allows you to know what you need more deeply and then to gravitate, magnetize, and attract. Jupiter in your eighth house, I think, is a period of time that can actually give you quite a lot. And this could mean money and finances. It could mean pay raises. It could mean big contracts. It could also mean friends bringing you meals. It could mean, somebody providing you with like a beautiful place to come and take a respite. It could mean sanctuary that you create for yourself. And in that sanctuary, you come into deeper access with spirit. I definitely think that this is a transit that wants to increase your social vitality. But in order to do that, it really requires your discernment because there's like 9 billion people in the world. And trust me, not all those people are for you. And so when I say social vitality, I don't mean just like, yay, more and more and more and more people. I mean more people who are the right people for you, more people who you are resonating with, feeling nourished by, feeling inspired by. And that doesn't mean that you always agree. It doesn't mean that you're always coming from the same place. In fact, I think that diversity in your friend groups and your social groups is of increasing importance in your life, and being able to connect and converse and exchange with people from like a wide array of what life has to offer is really important for your evolution and development. But from across the many different corners of the world and consciousness, there are certain kinds of resonances that are important, right? And when it comes to resonance, it's about who are you meeting, or like where are you meeting, or how are you meeting? And as we get to the end of May, especially the last couple days of May, okay, like the 27th through the 31st, you are understanding something about what you need in relationships. And this means that you're understanding a lot about what you don't need. And as this understanding deepens, you need to be prepared to let go of some either people or situations or ways of functioning with those people and situations. And that might mean surprising things are coming out of your mouth, are coming out in conversations, and you got to roll with it courageously. And this is the time, right, for you to be like, I'm a Scorpio bitch. Like, say it, say the thing. Be honest, be authentic. Don't bullshit people, and don't hide yourself. This is one of the places where it's like Scorpio can have a public image or, meme image or whatever of being, intense and like saying the thing. But a lot of y'all are really secretive and you hold your cards very close to your chest and you're not always saying the thing. This is the time for you to say the thing. Ask for what you want, say what you mean, say what you don't want. If somebody can't hear you, that's information. And of course, there's skill and tact to communication, right? Like it's hard to hear people if they are yelling at you and insulting you. But if you are doing your own work, maintaining your own dignity, right? Loving yourself and holding their humanity as you speak to them, but also feeling that, inside of humanity, we need boundaries as you speak. And if they can't hear you, move on. It is time to move on. A lot of you are being shown that you can have and experience what you never thought you could have and experience. And this is surprising. This is like, oh, okay. And, so on the other side of this, like, some things have to end. On the other side of that is so that other things can have more space, so that other experiences can flourish and thrive. And these are experiences that feel liberating, that feel new, that feel like they are going to allow you to grow in this transformational way that I'm feeling like you want to grow. As we get into the month of June, we have Mercury and Venus is now also in Gemini. And Jupiter is here. So there's a lot of activity going on in your 8th house. This activity is talking down to your 4th house where Pluto is recently in the last 2 years or so, kind of sneaking in, inching into Aquarius. And Pluto has recently stationed retrograde. It's going back into Capricorn. And there's this kind of, it feels a little awkward place that I think that you're in that is about really changing patterning. And in the changing of patterning, your communication is a big part of that. And how you communicate does not begin with other people. It begins with you and how you communicate to yourself. And so this is part of what I'm saying, like, how are you feeling? Because if you don't know how you're feeling, how are you going to let anybody else know what you want or what you need? And I think that part of your capacity to like penetrate psychologically, oddly, this is something that's coming up for me. Maybe you don't resonate. Maybe it's not for everybody, but maybe it's for some of you. It's like, I want to say that that's actually also a capacity to disassociate. Like when you can, it's like Scorpio can like go really deeply into somebody else. It's like, oh, I see you, and like understand the mechanisms of something. You can gauge your own safety and all that kind of stuff. But I think that inside of that and inside of a lot of folks who have like deep empathic and psychic capacities is trauma and like disassociation. And trauma happens, it's part of life. It's a huge part of how we grow and evolve. Disassociation is not only bad, right? It's not only like a trauma pattern, it can be enormously supportive. It can actually be a total like capacity to survive, and like I just said, psychic capacity. But we also have to reassociate, right? We have to reintegrate. And the first week of May, we're moving towards a new moon on May 6th. And it's like, I want you to take this whole week and be quiet. I want you to take the whole week and actually turn off all of your devices. Take the apps off of your phone. Don't scroll. Literally, like, don't communicate unless you absolutely have to. Just be with you. Like, be in an internal space so that you can deeply listen. And in that listening, notice your communication habits. Notice what you tell yourself. Notice how you tell yourself about who you need to be in the world and what you need to do for the world in order to get your needs met. I'm going to say that again. Listen deeply to your inner communication. And your inner communication is not just language, it's also feelings, it's impulses, it's instincts, it's drives. Listen to what you are telling yourself about how you need to be and who you need to be out there in the world for you to get your needs met. Your needs can include recognition, validation, and witnessing. They can include financial and resource support or housing or food. They can include adoration. They can include love. They can include sex. They can include all kinds of things. You are a multidimensional person. You have multidimensional needs. Do a cleansing process in your inner communication. Cleanse your mind and body of messaging that keeps you running on pathways of performing inauthentically for others, or hiding yourself, or like holding yourself in bondage for others because you think that that's what's going to get you happiness and liberation and your needs met. It is time to expel those patterns. The more that you take up your own space and express yourself, not from a place that's disconnected, right? I'm not asking you to go out there and be like an arrogant, self-centered, self-aggrandizing, whatever. You need to be relational. You need to be empathic. You need to attune to your impact. But we don't want you disassociating and like acting outside of yourself, or not bringing yourself fully, or keeping yourself hidden, because that's the programming. That needs to end. That needs to end. That needs to end. All right? All right. Now, easier said than done. It's a process. It's all a process. The last 2 weeks of Gemini season, kind of from that new moon on June 6th until the solstice on June 20th in the beginning of Cancer season, this is very much a time when it feels like you are really trying to bring these beliefs into action. And there's a big push for change right now. And so I want to say that, in general and in the world, and certainly for each of us as individuals, when we're trying to change and transform, it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, 5 steps forward, 1 step back. It's like some days it's going to feel easy, some days it's not. Now, I think that there are a couple of things that can really help you here. And one thing is creative play. Creative play is super helpful to not take yourself so seriously. All Scorpios need that help. Creative play, right? How do you imagine otherwise? And then kind of just like play in it. Creative play also helps you to reconnect with your natural intelligence, especially in a time of devastating trauma. that is ongoing, where, you know, there's like actually a paradigm out there that is trying to numb us psychically and keep us, you know, completely disassociated and fragmented. So we will just keep on going with the program. Creative play is going to help you. Being in spaces where you can actually access your inner child, this kind of place of innocence and experimentation and exploration. I want to encourage you to play with EA, with Embodied Astrology. In May, on May 4th, we have a new series beginning. And by the time you get this, it will have already have begun. But we have this is the ongoing series, and so there's another session, and they're all drop-in, all of these sessions. You don't have to come to all of them. So there's another one right in the beginning of June. I think it's June 1st, and I'm realizing I don't have it written on my notes, but you could find it on embodiedastrology.com. So this is called the Nebula Lab, and I think this would be a really great place for you to play. My colleague Gabs 404 is a photographer, and they're working a lot in self-portraiture and photography, but also like narrative documentary photography. And they're working with AI, and they're really interested in how photography and imagery manipulate reality. And we are living at a time when reality is being manipulated constantly by photography and imagery, right? It's like our eyeballs are constantly streaming all these images, and who knows what's real in a lot of ways, more and more. But these tools can also be utilized to help us expand our imaginations of what could be, both in the past, the present, and the future. And Gabs will be working with some influences astrologically that have to do with like a great undoing and dissolving of reality that's happening right now in 2024, 2025. So these places are drop-ins. It's a place to tune in with astrology as like a poetic, playful space, not a place where you need to know, you know, about astrology necessarily, but astrology is a portal to kind of open up into creative practice, into creative play. Same thing, every month we have full moon artistic alchemy spaces with Janata Petrus. Janata is a playwright and an author and a soul sweetener. She calls herself a runaway witch. I absolutely love artistic alchemy spaces. They're so supportive. It's like hang out with people who are there to talk about how to live a creative life as we are all trying to survive, how to do the transformational work of calling upon our inherent creativity, our creative ancestors and their creative gifts, to be in a time that requires our participation and transformation. And then Sherry Taylor is starting a new series in the end of June that is totally about devotional practice. And this is planetary allyship and devotion with the essence of Saturn as a being that is nurturing, which is very different than a lot of what we get in kind of like popular astrology and contemporary mythology. Saturn is often talked about as restrictive and oppressive and drying and things like that. But if you look back at Saturn's myth, you will actually find the creator of humanity and civilization, and a being that has a great sense of humor, that is like highly erotic and, you know, is half goat and half fish and all kinds of other forms as well, including deeply feminine. And I think that devotional space is highly creative for you right now. And so accessing the portal of spiritual practice is one place for you to access your creative play. And this is a way of playing, you know, with the subtle and with the numinous, as well as with the imaginal, as well as with the social. And this feels so much like medicine for you right now. I like can't even describe it in enough words. And I would say that I think that this is an increasing influence for you in an ongoing way for the foreseeable future. And the volume is about to get so turned up in Cancer season. So you can find information on all of Embodied Astrology's offerings at embodiedastrology.com. And I certainly hope that you join us, Scorpio, and I certainly wish you all the best in Gemini season and beyond. Bye for now.